High above the jagged peaks of the Crimson Mountains, where the clouds kissed the granite spires, lived a young eagle named Eli. Eli was a magnificent creature. His wings were a masterpiece of nature, strong and wide, tipped with feathers that shimmered like polished obsidian in the sunlight. His eyes were like drops of molten gold, sharp and focused, missing nothing that moved in the valleys below. But as vast as his wingspan was, his pride was even bigger. Eli believed he was the strongest, the fastest, the king of the skies. And kings, he thought, fly alone every morning, while other eagles gathered, sharing news of the best hunting grounds or warning each other of shifting winds. Eli would take to the sky by himself. He would launch from the highest crag, a solitary speck against the brilliant blue canvas. He'd scoff at the others. Why chatter when you can soar? He would think, why fly in a flock when you can own the sky? He loved the feeling of the wind being his and his alone, the silent conversation between his wings and the air currents. He would perform breathtaking dives, corkscrewing down towards the earth at impossible speeds, pulling up just moments before touching the treetops. He was a master of the air, a lone artist painting invisible patterns across the heavens. The other eagles would watch him, a mix of awe and concern in their gazes. He is brilliant, an older eagle named Kale would often say, but the sky is a vast and unpredictable companion. It does not always favor the proud. One afternoon, the sky began to change. The usual gentle blue faded to a bruised purple and gray. The air, once warm and welcoming, grew heavy and cold. The wind, which Eli usually commanded with expert precision, began to whip and snarl with a fury he had never experienced. It was a storm, but not just any storm. This was a tempest, a wild, untamed beast of wind and rain. The younger eagles quickly sought shelter in the deep crevices of the cliffs, guided by the elders. But not Eli. He saw the storm not as a threat, but as a challenge. A worthy opponent for a king. He spread his mighty wings and flew directly into the heart of the gale, determined to conquer it. At first, he felt invincible. He battled the cross winds, using his strength to cut through the gusts. He was a warrior in the sky, and for a moment, it was exhilarating. But the storm was relentless. The wind didn't just push, it twisted and tore. A particularly violent gust caught him from below, flipping him over like a leaf. He tumbled uncontrollably, disoriented and panicked. Another blast of wind slammed into his right wing, and he heard a sickening snap. A crucial flight feather, one that gave him balance and lift, was ripped away. Pain, sharp and searing, shot through his wing. He tried to correct his flight, to regain control, but his wing wouldn't obey. He was crippled, struggling to stay airborne. The ground, a dizzying blur of rock and pine, spun closer and closer. Fear, an emotion Eli had always scorned, flooded his heart. It was cold and suffocating. He was going to fall. He was going to crash. The king of the sky was being defeated. In that moment of sheer terror, his pride shattered. He was not a king. He was just a young, frightened eagle, alone and hurt. With all the breath he could muster, he let out a cry. It wasn't a cry of defiance or a challenge. It was a cry for help, a desperate, piercing shriek that cut through the roar of the wind. He didn't know if anyone would hear him, or if they would even care. He had always kept them at a distance. Why would they help him now? He closed his eyes, bracing for the inevitable impact. But the crash never came. Instead, he felt a subtle shift in the air around him. He opened his eyes to an incredible sight. Through the driving rain, he saw them. Kale, the old eagle he had so often dismissed, was flying just below him, his broad, steady wings creating an updraft that helped keep Eli from falling. To his left and right, two other eagles, Mara and Jox, positioned themselves, using their bodies to shield him from the most vicious gusts of wind. More eagles appeared, forming a protective, moving circle around him. They communicated with sharp, reassuring calls, coordinating their movements with a precision that Eli, in all his solo flights, had never known. They weren't just flying. They were a single, unified force, a living fortress against the storm's rage. They didn't mock him or scold him for his foolishness. They simply flew with him, their presence a silent promise of safety. Together, this squadron of eagles navigated the turbulent air. They guided the injured Eli, slowly and carefully, away from the storm's fury and towards the shelter of the cliffs. They led him to a deep, warm nest tucked away in a protected alcove, a place he had never known existed. He collapsed onto the soft lining, his body trembling with pain and exhaustion. Mara brought him a piece of fish, and Kale gently preened his ruffled feathers, examining the damaged wing with a knowing eye. "You will heal, young one," Kale said softly, his voice calm and kind. "A lost feather will grow back, but a lesson learned lasts forever." Eli rested in that warm nest for many days. The other eagles took turns bringing him food and keeping him company. They shared stories, not of solo triumphs, but of how they had worked together to chase away a rival predator, or how they had guided a lost fledgling back to its nest. For the first time, Eli listened. He watched them from his sheltered nook, observing the intricate dance of their community. He saw how they looked out for one another, how their collective strength made them all safer, all stronger. He realized that the chattering he had once scorned was actually communication, the foundation of their survival. He felt a deep sense of shame for his arrogance, but it was quickly replaced by an overwhelming feeling of gratitude. They had saved his life, no questions asked. They had shown him a kindness he had never shown them. Eli began to understand that true strength wasn't about flying alone and facing every danger by yourself. True strength was knowing when to ask for help. It was about trusting others and lending your own strength to the flock. It was the power of we, not the pride of I. As his wing healed and a new feather began to sprout, Eli's spirit healed as well. The day finally came when he was strong enough to fly again. The other eagles gathered to watch. He took a deep breath, not of arrogant confidence, but of quiet determination. He launched into the air, his wings catching the wind. He flew not with the reckless abandon of before, but with a new grace, a new wisdom. He circled once, then flew over to where Kale was perched. He dipped his head in a gesture of respect and thanks. Then, instead of flying off on his own, he joined the others. He flew in formation, feeling the powerful, comforting presence of the flock around him. From that day on, Eli soared higher than he ever had before. He was still a magnificent flyer, fast and strong, but his brilliance was now part of something larger. He flew with the flock, his sharp eyes adding to their collective watchfulness, his strong wings adding to their collective power. He learned that teamwork didn't diminish his own strength, it amplified it. Eli, the eagle who once believed a king in FLIs alone, had finally learned that true royalty lies in lifting others up, and that together, they were all kings and queens of the sky. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.